Hello, everyone, and welcome to Getting into Console Part 11, redone the third time. Third time, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, let's call it the third time so we can say third time's a charm.
Yeah, you'll notice this isn't live. You'll notice this might have been recorded and posted to YouTube. You might have known that we have, recorded part, 1 to 13 and somehow skipped 11 in the playlist. That's because we recorded part 11 twice and still didn't get it working. So we said, all right, we're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to go and look at some of our resources, make sure we actually got the right information. And now we're back. So we are posting this after the fact. Hopefully, this is getting into console, and we typically do things the more difficult way. This time, we're just going to expedite the process a bit. We're going to do some explanation. We're going to do a little bit of automated script running. We're not going to go as in depth with all of the individual pieces and copy paste because poor Cole has to then redo everything. So we're not going to do that. We're going to show you what's in the automated scripts as well as the important steps that you'll need to know about Mesh Federation, but we won't be as painstaking. Sorry, everybody. I know some people enjoy it, but we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Today.
In other words, we will not sit here for hours watching me fiddle with a bug.
I mean, we still could. I don't know. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I would insert clips of our previous attempts, except they went so long. It's hard to extract clips from them. So we're just going to start completely new. And we'll go into a little bit of the premise. So let's actually recap what we had done prior to this episode. Basically, prior to this episode, we had set up gateways. We had set up an ingress gateway and a terminating gateway. So they're kind of these different gateways in console. Some of them, like the ingress gateway, help you get traffic into the mesh. Others, like the terminating gateway, help you get traffic out of the mesh. And that allows you to sort of meshify services that are in and out of the mesh, both. But there turns out to be there's another gateway type in console. And the problem statement is as such. Imagine you have you know what? First of all, let me show my handy dandy diagram.
Yes.
Yes. That would be very helpful if I can share my screen properly. That is.
I just gotta say, it is just now clicking to me. 13 parts later, that practically anytime we hear the word gateway in context of console, we're talking about getting in or out of the service mesh.
Yes, that is true. Yes. Gateways help you get in and out of the mesh. Yeah. So imagine this scenario. Imagine you have a console service mesh in DC1. DC1 could be US East, whatever. It could be whatever, right? And then you have another console service mesh in DC2. This could be, I don't know, US West. So we're going from me, US East, to Cole, US West. And then you want web in DC1 to connect to API in DC2. So the idea is that wrong arrow is kind of in the wrong direction, but the idea is that you want web, which is in DC1, to get to DC2. And so this is what it kind of looks like here. The intent is that you want to connect the two meshes together. So if, let's say, you one day, have something failing in DC1's API, then you could just switch to DC2's API. And the mesh gateway is a component that allows you to communicate across these two meshes. But in order for these mesh gateways to work, you have to do something called federation first. And the idea of this is called WAN federation. And as we previously talked about in other episodes, but we never actually recapped this, Cole, federation has existed in console for quite some time. So federation has existed in console in a couple different formulations. It was first in sort of direct connectivity between two meshes. I can pull up the link. Let me just pull up the link here. Let me add the banner. So this is some documentation on mesh, on federation. But what I'll do is I'll pull up the documentation because it kind of helps understand what the previous model was. So let me share.
Yeah. I think I recall that.
Yes.
But it'd be nice to see it again for sure.
Yeah. So you remember, previously, historically at least, Federation in console was done without mesh gateways, and this meant every single console server and its leaders had to be able to talk to each other. So you notice this lovely diagram here where everything was interconnected. So opening communication between all of these was just a really difficult task. And from a security perspective, not fantastic, right? Because you have to perpetually keep these channels open if you have one DC1 and a DC2, so DC2 over here. So all of these had to be open. And the idea is that you had multiple data centers and you could continue federating them. Consul uses a hub and spoke model, meaning that if you are federating, there is one primary and there are all of the secondaries. Other federation models for other kinds of distributed systems include a mesh model. Yes, we are very confused, but there's a mesh model by which everything connects to each other. Consul, yeah.
Go ahead. I'll wait till you finish that thought. I just want to ask a question.
Okay, Consul's federation model assigns a primary, and then secondaries are the ones that connect to it.
Gotcha. So my question here is, when we hear the mouthful WAN federation via mesh gateways, in plain English, WAN federation being WAN, that's the medium by which we are federating. Federating being joining a singular console cluster, correct, to be controlled under one umbrella. Via mesh gateways being we are doing this through mesh gateways.
Right? That's correct. Yep. Right. So we are doing this model here, which is with the mesh gateways. So everything is communicating through the mesh gateways themselves. So if you do federation, or if you need to control something in DC2, you can do it from DC1. DC1 has the awareness because it is able to connect through the mesh gateway.
I have a quick question on, I don't know what even the right word for this is, but how would I say this? Am I saying that DC2 is federating to DC1, or do we say both DC1 and DC2 federate to the same cluster, and that's kind of like its own thing? Like, how would you word that?
I would say DC2 federates to DC1.
Okay, cool.
Just so you're clear that it's a primary. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is bidirectional to a certain degree.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Now, since we recorded this, since we did this live twice before, there's actually yet another model. I don't have diagrams for it, but there's actually yet another model that makes this easier, in which you don't actually need federation. It's called cluster peering. It was released in tech preview. And the idea is that you don't need mesh federation anymore. Instead, you could have just one mesh. And then if you have multiple console clusters, it could all just join that. There's no federation involved. That model may work for some folks. Otherwise, some folks may prefer federation just because of security control. In terms of funneling, they want to directly or specifically funnel routing between the mesh gateways, for example. In the case of cluster peering, you have to organize a bit of the routing in a way that it's not going through one central point. It has to have connectivity to the console control plane.
Okay, gotcha. So so in that model, we drop the whole idea of a mesh gateway, and we really try to stay as if we're one cluster.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
yep.
Cool. And go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, but the trade-off with doing so seems to be less control over things happening between these two disparate clusters. Correct?
Yeah. So you get a little bit more control in that it's a single pane of glass, but that you get to control across all of these, like as if it was one cluster. But in the case of mesh federation, in case of federation using mesh gateways, sometimes maybe you just want routing specifically through one endpoint, and you only want to monitor it through that singular endpoint, in which case a mesh gateway is probably a model that you want to think about, right?
Yeah, that's true.
If it's crucial for you to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that absolutely makes sense. The root word gatekeeper, if you want someone to monitor and have more control over that, that's what you would want. So, yeah. Okay. Gateway, not gatekeeper, gateway.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So I guess we should just get started then. What we're going to do as a recap is then we're going to do WAN federation via mesh gateway. So we have DC1, DC2. We're going to get web to connect to API in DC2. And that's really all we want to do. We didn't set up too much though. So Cole, I'll let you walk through exactly what we have set up right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have right now are 2 equivalent data centers. And by 2 data centers, it just means 2 different VPCs in AWS. One representing our main data center, and one representing the second one. And the main one, we have a console cluster consisting of a console server. And that's pretty much the cluster there, at least for the server standpoint. And then we have a couple of clients. So API service, a client service, and then a mesh gateway, all in DC1. Over here in DC2, we have a very similar setup. We've got another console server that is not yet alive or awake, or whatever you want to call it, an API in DC2, and then also another mesh gateway. So right now, the first one's up, the second ones are down and waiting, and that's where we are.
Awesome. And I'm going to flash the corrected diagram up so that way it's a little more clear. Because you know what? That's what happens when you diagram way too quickly. Let me pull this up. There we go. Okay, so this is really what we're talking about here. Web, right, through the mesh gateway to the mesh gateway to API. And both of them, they are on different addresses. I don't recall if DC2 is on this address space or not, but it's 254. We have to double check.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. So DC2 is on 254. Yep. But the idea is that now we're going to try to route between the two so that web can connect to API, but none of them are. DC2 currently is inactive, right? So we just have DC1.
Yep. That's pretty much it.
Here we go. Okay. So step 1. We're going to go to our handy dandy repository.
Okay.
I don't know how you want to set this up, but maybe it's easier just to.
Yeah. Let me move my windows around here because I've got too many things open here. Okay, so I've got the repo up. Did you mean the actual code repo, or did you mean this repo?
Code repo.
Okay, code repo. Here's the code repo.
Yeah, I'll flash it across the screen so folks can get it. Okay. So we had part 11. Are you on part 11? Or not on part 11?
Yep.
Okay, you are on part 11. Okay. All of this is in part 11. But the first important thing is that we've run Terraform apply. Things are available.
And I can show that.
Could you actually
up here.
show? Yeah, that would be good.
Everything's up here and running. So we've got our DC1 stuff, which is, you can tell by the fact that it doesn't have hyphen DC2, and all the DC2 stuff's got the DC2 suffix there.
Nice. And if you can go to the console UI.
So here's for the DC1.
Yep.
And then here's for DC2, which is a bad gateway because it's just not live. So that's why it's not going in anything.
Yep. And so, Cole, if you could hover over if you could increase the font a bit on this one.
Yes.
And if you could, there's a top left drop down that says DC1. You'll notice that it's a primary, right? So there's no federation set up yet. Right now it's a primary and it's a local. There's not much more there other than, this is the only data center that's up. And that's pretty much all it needs. We'll go through a couple critical configurations though. If you go back to your code base and we go to server.sh, server.sh. Server.sh is where we keep our initial user data script for bootstrapping the console server. So a couple of important things that we need to keep in mind if you scroll down. If you're doing federation, you'll need to set a couple of additional configurations. First, you need to assign a primary data center on line 34. If you do not assign a primary data center, console has no idea which one is the primary data center. So you must assign a primary data center to every console agent.
Or else.
Or else. It doesn't know. Let's see. There's ACLs are enabled. Scroll down. Let's see if there's other config. Scroll down. Yeah. So other than that, the second thing you'll need to enable is if we have connect enabled and we need to use mesh gateways. You can only really use mesh gateways if you have the service mesh enabled. So we've enabled the service mesh and we enable mesh gateway when federation set to true. Very important.
Nice. Yes.
And then let's see. We're going to bootstrap proxy defaults with mesh gateway mode local. That's on line 100, 102. As for those who are not as familiar and or forgot what this was, basically we bootstrap configuration entries when console starts, including the proxy defaults. We wanted to set mesh gateway to local, which means it will reference the local mesh gateway first before trying to get to the remote mesh gateway.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. What is the difference between is the local one the one in our data center, or is that something else?
Yeah, it's the mesh gateway that's local to our data center. What it will do is proxy the traffic to the other mesh gateway. You could you could remotely dial the other mesh gateway. This is just basically saying we have a local one that we're going to dial first.
Okay. In I know this is kind of an aside, but in what situation would you not want to go directly to your own data center's mesh gateway and instead go to a different one?
If there's some reason or another you just don't want the second hop, right? You don't want to go through like your own mesh gateway first. You know exactly which mesh gateway you want to go to, so you just do a remote mesh gateway.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right, let's keep going. That's it.
That's it.
So that is the server. And so the server has started up with these parameters first, right? And that's important to recognize. And then let's see what else we have. The next thing is that we're going to do is, do we have a mesh gateway up right now? I guess
we do. We have the one in DC1 is up, but none of these are actually, none of the ones in DC1 are actually started. They all have their tokens and stuff, but the console envoy and all that stuff is not started on them. Okay.
So let's do this. So what I had Cole do was run a script. It's called postapply.sh. Postapply.sh generates a bunch of tokens and stuff for all of the various forms. What tripped us up the last time that we did not do properly was that some of these ACL tokens have to be scoped. Yeah, we previously, just from a security standpoint, we scoped it to a specific data center. Turns out that if you're doing something like federation, you don't really want to scope these tokens to a single data center. You either scope it to the multiple data centers that need to connect each other, or you scope it to all data centers. So what he's highlighted here with web on line 49 is that web is communicating across all data, is able to communicate to services across all data centers. It's not, the token itself is not just scoped to, let's say, DC1, unlike API.
Nice.
So yeah, the downstreams, you can think about it as the downstream service must have an ACL token that is not scoped to just a single data center. It must be scoped to all data centers that you're planning to access.
And that makes sense.
Yes. So that was our original mistake.
Yeah. And as we can see, it was only 4 characters of a mistake.
That tripped us up. And the other thing that you need to do, if you go to line 54, the other thing you'll need to do is create an ACL policy for the mesh gateway and apply it to the data center, the valid data centers. So if you could open policies meshgateway.hcl.
Yep.
Yeah. So mesh gateway is a service, right? It's registered as a service. So your service prefix must match whatever you call your mesh gateway. In this case, we call it mesh gateway. Simple enough. It also needs read policies on all services, all nodes, as well as all agents. So you need to have this policy in place. And then if you can issue a token for it, that will be a valid token for your mesh gateway. Otherwise, it won't have access to anything in console.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
This is very similar to the other policies that we've written for other service identities. So at least that we've seen. So if they're confusing, I can't remember which episode it was when we covered these. I think I don't know off the top of my head.
ACLs was part 4.
Yep. So check out part 4 if you need a brush up on if you want to brush up on ACLs or policies.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we got this part. We've talked through this part at least, but let's actually first start the mesh gateway. Okay. We'll start the mesh gateway in DC1. So just to be clear, everybody, we are starting the mesh gateway in DC1. So we have a server started. Yeah.
Should I start API and web first, or does it matter? I don't know why.
I would just start mesh gateway first.
Okay.
And then we can start web, API and web. Yeah.
Let me actually make sure. And it went up.
Yes. So we're on the mesh gateway right now.
Because probably because I don't have the envoy up. You can keep talking. I'll
yeah. So we don't. So right now we're on the mesh gateway machine. The mesh gateway machine, virtual machine, has a console client. If you're deploying a mesh gateway on a virtual machine, you should have a console client running. So you will not only run console envoy, you will also run the console client. And what is important about this is, Cole, if you could print out the systemd file for console-envoy.
There we go.
Yep. So what's important here is that we are using the console connect envoy command. We are passing that the gateway is a mesh. We're going to register it as the service mesh gateway. Remember, we had an ACL policy in which the service prefix for the mesh gateway was mesh gateway, so that has to match. We're also setting the addresses as well as the WAN address. In this case, it's our private IP. Because we have a peered VPC, we can use the private IP. Expose servers is very important. You must expose servers. That is a parameter we missed. You must expose it.
Nice.
I'm just going to reemphasize that because we missed that the last time too.
Yeah.
So you must have exposed servers. We, rather than print out the token, we are using a token file reference. So that way Cole does
that
not
was
print
nice.
out the token.
That was very nice. I saw that yesterday. I was like, oh, nice one. I didn't even know that was an option, which is on me, but that is nice.
Yeah, exactly. It is very nice. And so it should be up. So let's just check the console UI, and then we can check whether or not the mesh gateway came up. You'll notice that mesh gateway came up.
Yay.
Yes. So DC1 now has a mesh gateway. Yay.
My brain still expects to come here and see red. So it's nice
this time we put exposed servers on. So, everybody's glad. Yeah. We got this all good. Okay. So now let's start API and let's start web.
Okay. Sounds good. So I will go ahead and get those up. I should probably just start it first.
I mean, I guess so, but.
Yeah. I don't think I put them up once.
Yeah. So Cole, you notice Cole is not doing his usual copy paste dance with ACL tokens. It's because he's already loaded the ACL tokens. Yeah. So he'll start them up, but we're going to make sure we have them all started because there's a bit of a margin for error. Yes, this also happens too. So if you are running through the examples and you see this failed to start console envoy, sometimes if the console agent doesn't correctly start up, there's sort of an order of operations. So it needs to properly register first, and then you can start console envoy.
Yeah, I think it's just taking a second. This usually tends to happen. So every time this has happened in the past, I've had to just start it.
You restart it.
Yeah, I'm gonna try again.
Yeah, just keep doing that.
Here we go.
Here we are. Okay, so then we can check API is coming up.
Yeah,
this is still
take a second.
Yeah, this is still.
I'll get web while you do that.
Yeah. Yep. So this is still in DC1, everybody. We're not going to try to get ambitious right now. We're not going to try to federate. Really, what we're trying to do right now is just assuming we start all these services in the first data center and we get this working, right? So we're going to do this first, and then we'll add on federation. But we've at least started a mesh gateway. The mesh gateway will help us facilitate federation accordingly. We just need to have it up. So again, if you're starting the mesh gateway, make sure you generate a correct token, ACL token for it, and assign it the correct policy. And make sure you also add the expose servers command. What that will do is expose the console servers for registration and federation. You must have exposed servers enabled, otherwise it will not properly register the servers across multiple clusters.
Much pain was felt to learn that lesson.
Exactly. And so now we have console API web up. Cole, if you could go to the load balancer for web and just double check that we can actually access from web to API.
Sure thing.
So that we're not just saying, oh, web may or may not work. Okay.
Yay.
Yes. Okay. So if you could do /UI, maybe that's better. There we go. Okay. Come on. There we go. Okay. So you'll notice that it's on 255, 10255, 10255. Both of them are in the same data center. Web can connect to API. Yeah.
Nice.
So we know that works. Now, the next thing is we're going to set up ACL replication. In the case of federation, in the case of federation, one of the steps we missed last time was ACL replication. In order for you to sort of manage the policies across data centers, the access policies across data centers, you must have ACL replication turned on. ACL replication is a way for you to get one single view of the ACLs and policies across all of your clusters.
Okay. So real quick question. When we call it replication, my mind is literally thinking we're going to replicate what we have in DC1 and DC2. But from what we've talked about, the better understanding seems to be that it just means DC2 gets to use ACLs that are made in DC1.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
And it's important to set this up because if you do have ACLs enabled on console, if you have all these different ACL policies, they can conflict, etc. So the primary ACL rules will be the ones that apply to the remaining secondaries.
I have a question. If we were to make in this new world where DC1 is kind of like the authority on what's happening in the ACL world, if we were to make an ACL in DC2 on the DC2's console servers, what's the result?
I'm not 100% sure. We should give it a try though.
Okay. Well, let's do that after
after we set up.
Yeah. Yes. Cool. Nice.
Unfortunately, ACL replication is one of the ones that it's like I'm not 100% sure on behavior, so we might as well just try it.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay, so let's go to the code base and go to the scripts post apply ACL.sh.
All right. Post ACL. Okay, yeah.
Yes. So this is a set of commands you'll need to issue in order to set up ACL replication. The first is that you need to create a replication policy. If you could open up policies, replication policy. ACLs have policies, of course. To no one's surprise.
Wait, policies have policies?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So to no one's surprise, if you want to write a policy like ACL equals write, you need to add a policy for that, define a policy, right? To allow someone to do that, or a service to do that, or or in this case, a console token to do that.
Oh, okay.
So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you must have ACL write.
Gotcha. And operator write?
Yeah. So there's an operator endpoint by which it's sort of like allowing replication and federation. So you do need to enable that as well.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
And then this one's just gonna say, and then beyond that, any service you can read the intentions of the policies of.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So if we go back to post apply ACL.sh, here we are.
That one.
Yes, we made our policy, and then we're going to add a token that's attached to it.
Okay,
so that's where line 7 is.
Oh, okay. So
yes, where you're moving too far. Line 7.
Oh, line 7. Oh, I see. Because
yes.
Gotcha. I missed the $sign thing here. I didn't know what was going on. Yeah.
Yes. So this is creating the token.
Okay. I see what we're doing here. Yeah. Okay. The line kept going. Yeah, of course. Nice.
Yes. Okay. We are writing it out to a file so that if you do run this, you won't print it out on screen. Yeah. Anyway, so then what you're probably wondering, what is 9 and 10? 9 and 10, you may have noticed a problem before where there was an ACL policy that said it needed to read some information. If you go to policies-anonymous.hcl. So policies-anonymous.hcl is a read-only policy where an anonymous service can read the services as well as the nodes. This isn't ideal. Unfortunately, with Mesh Federation, there's sort of a pre-stage when it bootstraps in which it doesn't have a user, right? So, it doesn't have a corresponding identity. So it needs anonymous access in order to read the set of services as well as nodes. I would just recommend, in general, from a security standpoint, secure your console UI and console endpoints in a manner that this anonymous not everybody can just read it, right? So unfortunately,
is this the thing that was required to get the two data centers to talk to each other first that can then be closed down after the fact?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So,
and the reason being is because initially, even though we want to do this entire federation process and having the services talk through the mesh gateway, when we first set it up, enough things in DC1 need to be able to talk to things in DC.
yes.
Sorry, enough things in DC2 need to be able to talk to things in DC1, which is why we need this policy created so that they can get that communication done. But after they're set up and it's good to go, we can close that down. So
yes.
All right, cool.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. So then let's run this post apply ACL script so that you can generate all your tokens.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Gotcha. And this will make it in DC1. So I am safe to run this. All right. I'm not missing anything. It should be right. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yes. So now the token is in tokens-acl.txt. Don't print it out on screen.
Okay. Do I need to get it?
You will need to copy it. So what we're going to do is remove Cole's screen. So what you're going to do is copy it from the tokens.acl.txt and paste it into the into the second data center server.
Second data server.
Sorry. Console server DC2.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. I see. Yep.
Yeah. So in console server DC2, you're going to need to copy the ACL replication token from the tokens.acl and paste it into console.hcl.
Okay. Gotcha. Is my screen shared right now?
No, I took it down.
Okay, awesome.
Yes. While you do that, I'm going to actually share my screen and show exactly which part of this we are copying and pasting into.
Yes. And this is the will you be able to show the replication field that we're at in there?
Yes, we are.
Okay, just so I don't have to show the token.
Yes, exactly. Because you know what? We're better than this.
All right, I've got that token added to server. Should I go ahead and start it or just wait till you're done showing your stuff? Let's let you. I think you should show your conceptual thing that you're going to do first.
You could start it and then see if it starts. I mean, I assume just double check the README and make sure that I didn't just miss a step in there.
Okay, yeah, I'll look through one more time.
Yeah, but it should just be copy paste and then start. No, actually, I think there's a missing step as well. But anyway, I'll show this on screen. So this is the console.hcl for server in DC2. So there's a little bit of a difference compared to DC1. First, again, we said it was important to set the primary data center. This is setting the primary data center to DC1. The biggest difference is that under ACLs, you'll notice there's two important fields. On line 49, we have enable token replication. Enable token replication means that it will enable ACL token replication. Very critical that you enable that. And you need to pass the replication token under the list of tokens. So we have master, we have agent, and we have replication now. The other important thing is that, similar to before, we also enable Mesh Gateway WAN Federation under Connect. And for the most part, everything else remains the same. But, and the other field that we forgot last time, very important, is the primary gateways list.
Okay.
So you can think of the primary gateways list as almost like the retry join of federation. So there's retry join, in which console clients connect to console servers, and then there's also retry join for gateways. So primary gateways, this command is the equivalent of a retry join except for federation and gateways.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so cool.
Those are the important parameters that you will need for server DC2.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, I've got that token added in. What is it in terms of starting? Oh no, yeah, it says to go ahead and start it. So I guess I'll go ahead and start it up here. So
yeah, here we go, starting it up. This time we're not showing any tokens.
Yet. All right.
Should I share your screen again?
I think so. I'm just starting console. I don't think I have anything flashing on screen.
Okay. You're sure? Yeah.
Let me double check. Just in case, just okay, just yeah, I've got
usually
totally
because we're live, you know, we don't have the luxury of post-production to just like take it away, right? So
yeah. Okay, so
look at
that
us.
is, let me check the status. I guess I could have not deleted that part, but yeah, okay. It looks like that's up.
Cool. Okay, so that's fine. The next thing we're going to need to do is nothing is going to federate, right? We need to get the mesh gateway up. So let's go to the mesh gateway DC2. So we set up mesh gateway DC1. We're going to set up mesh gateway DC2 as well. And the other thing that we are going to have to do is create a mesh gateway token for DC2.
So real quick, I have a question here.
Yeah.
So console server is up here. Apologies, when do I need to run this post apply DC2 script?
Now.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Because I just realized because does the server in DC2 have? Yeah, it has the tokens, the bootstrap and the agent and the master token and the ACL replication tokens. The only tokens we need now are for DC2's API and DC2's mesh gateway, right?
Yep.
And thus running this second script, the post apply DC2.
Right. So what I'll do is while you run that, I will explain it.
Perfect.
And then while you copy paste.
Yep,
so let me remove you from the share so that you do not share your copy pasting. And then I shall explain this separately.
Perfect. I will run this script.
Share screen. Don't have this one. Okay. So with a post apply DC2, this is the script that basically generates the tokens for mesh gateways as well as API in DC2. So any ACL tokens that have to do with DC2 are going to be generated using this script. If you do this manually, you're going to, again, generate a API node token, API service token. We are scoping it to DC2, API DC2. Why is this important? Well, it's because, API is only really scoped to DC2, and we don't really need all APIs in DC1. Again, only the downstream service, so in this case, web, needs to have access across all data centers. Web's token. So important thing to know. The next thing is that same as before, we generate a node ID token as well as a service token for mesh gateway DC2. Again, mesh gateway DC2. And then with mesh gateway DC2, we're going to copy and paste this into the mesh gateway DC2 script. So in the mesh gateway DC2 script, you'll notice some important parameters. In the console agent, you'll need to set a primary data center. Once again, you'll also put the node identity token, and that's pretty much all you'll need from a mesh gateway console client, the console client standpoint. So the client itself on the mesh gateway just needs the primary data center there. But important thing to know is that similarly as before, we have the console connect command gateway, and this time we register mesh gateway in DC2 and expose servers. So those are the important ones. Nice.
So I got a small error. I think it's rate limiting maybe, or maybe I got unauthenticated. Nothing got created, but it's just a request has expired. I'm just gonna try it again. If this doesn't work, then I'll take a look at my credentials. But I'm having trouble seeing why this might fail. Yeah.
Okay.
Request expired required. I already looked at the IAM instance profile. That's already set up. That looks correct. So I'll just try. Can you unshare my screen if it's being shared currently?
It is unshared. Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna just try and re-authenticate. Maybe that's it. And if not, we will cross that bridge here momentarily. Okay, I think that was it. My credentials just happened to expire right when we were doing this. Okay,
totally.
Nice.
Good job.
Okay, good stuff. So those have been made. So now I need to copy and paste tokens into API DC2 and Mesh Gateway DC2. So apologies, audience. You have seen me do this before.
Don't do API yet. Just do Mesh Gateway right now.
Okay, just the node.
Just do Mesh Gateway. Yeah.
So
Mesh Gateway node token, Mesh Gateway service token, and then do console envoy. So
gotcha.
we're just handling, basically what Cole's doing is he's copying just the mesh gateway tokens. We're going to hold off on copying the API in DC2 for now. We just want to check that federation is working. The margin for error last time when we did this was that we kind of went a little too fast. We weren't really that systematic. So we're taking it step by step. If you're setting up federation for the first time, set up the primary, make sure it's got all of the federation parameters enabled. It's a little bit different if you have an existing data center and you want to add federation to it. There's some other steps that you have to add. But because we have a new data center and we're adding it to be federated, the result is that we have a different set of steps, and we're just going to take it, take each of them in sequence. So we did everything with DC1 first, and now what we're doing is we're setting up DC2. And in terms of setting up DC2, we start the console server with the mesh federation parameters that we need, and then we add the mesh gateway for DC2, and hopefully that will federate both data center DC1 and DC2 together.
Looking like it's going well so far. I'm just giving console a second before I throw Envoy at it. Since he can be grumpy at times about that.
Should I share your screen now?
I think you can. Just checking in on the... Okay, so it's still like, I'm not ready. Okay, are you ready yet? It's like, now you're doing it too quick. All right, we'll let it hang out. I think it's still joining and doing all of this jazz here.
Yeah.
So.
And of course, we could have gotten this wrong. I don't know.
I mean, so far it's feeling right. It's feeling like sunshine. So let's just see. Look at that. See? Look at that. Now that should do it, I would imagine. Ha.
Okay. So in order for this to work, let's open DC2, the ALB for DC2, for console DC2.
The ALB for DC2. Wait, oh, you just mean this.
Yes.
Yeah, here we go.
Yes, you'll notice there's console, the server, and then mesh gateway DC2. Woohoo!
Yay! Very nice. Very, very nice. You're understating it. I am blown away. Nice.
So the mesh gateway in DC2 is up. Now, here's where things are going to get a little interesting. We need to check whether or not the data centers have federated. So you'll need to go back to the terminal for DC2.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I hope you set your console HTTP token environment variable.
I did not yet. Where would you like me to do you want me to go to the server in DC2 and do this work, or does it matter? I'm going to unshare your screen. Okay.
Because it's a bootstrap token. But I need you to set the console HTTP token on this console server in DC1 and the console server in DC2.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
Let me get that done real quick.
The reason why we're setting the console HTTP token is that we need to use the console CLI. We could use the console UI to verify that we've properly federated. Although in terms of the federation logs, as well as further debugging, I highly recommend using the CLI, as do most others. The CLI provides a little bit more useful information on whether or not federation happened successfully. So that is why we are, and why are we setting it on server DC1 as well as server DC2? We need both. The reason is that sometimes federation will happen unidirectionally and it won't happen in the other direction. So in order for us to just double check federation is working in both directions, we need to run the same command and debug on both data center servers.
Makes sense. I mean, it's two data centers. You're going to have to touch both.
Yes. It is, I'll show the two most crucial debugging commands for at least debugging whether or not federation has worked.
All right, they are set. Whatever I do not let me type history.
Okay. Ready?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So which one are you on? You're on DC2 now?
Yep, or DC1, whichever.
Okay. Let's start with DC1.
All right, here we are.
And you're going to type console space members space -WAN, WAN.
WAN.
Yep. Okay. So this is where you're going to see if DC1 successfully federated with DC2, what you'll see is that the status is alive. You'll also see the two sets of servers. If we had multiple servers, we only have one for each data center. But if we had 3 for each data center, you'll see a set of 6 servers in this list, all of which are labeled with a specific data center that they are associated with.
Nice.
Yes.
Very
now let's
nice.
let's just check the, you know what, we're going, you know what? Okay. So just to double check things are working, we're going to check if DC1 can read the services out of DC2. Okay. So Cole, I need you to issue this curl command.
Okay. Let me find where am I looking on Slack for this?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So what we're going to do is curl using the console token. We're going to curl to DC1's service catalog, right? So remember, there's a catalog of services. This is what you see in the UI. Wow. What we're going to do is we're going to curl to the catalog of services and filter on DC2, which means we're looking for services belonging to DC2. So let's issue that command. Cool. So what you'll see is that you have console and mesh gateway DC2. That is all that is in the catalog.
Yes. Nice. And we can see that right here behind my terminal as confirmation of that.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay. So let's go to DC2 and let's just check that DC2 can connect properly, federate properly to DC1. So let's do console space members space -WAN. Yay.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. And so then we're going to run the same curl command. You can paste, but we're going to change the filter.
Oops, that's not the curl command. Yeah, 1 second. I'm assuming we change this to DC1?
Yeah.
All right. Whoops.
Boop.
Look at that.
Yes.
They're all there. And if we go look in the UI, those are the same ones we see.
Now, if you did federation successfully, right, this is one way that you would debug, and you would do it through the console, through the CLI. But if you are in the UI, the reason why federation is so magical is if you go back to the UI and you click that DC dropdown again, DC1 dropdown, you should see DC2 there.
Look at that.
And you can click DC2.
What?
And that will show you DC2.
What? What the heck is going on?
Federation.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, I'm excited. Okay. So all right.
So there you are. So that means we've gotten federation working. Now, this doesn't really, we got this far to a certain degree by some fumbles and foibles.
I don't remember getting this far.
We did. It just wasn't as smooth. It just wasn't as smooth.
It's that thing after you've run like 6 miles and you're like, I know I ran it, but right now I don't even know what's going on. This time, this is so
you're numb. You're just so numb now. You're just so numb, and then you were so numb after like the first stream, and then the second one you were just like, what? And then so basically, I'll recap. In order to federate, and again, in this situation, we're starting with new clusters, new console clusters. If you're starting with existing console clusters, your sequence might be slightly different just because you do have to change a couple configs, right? So your sequence of reboots may be different. But we started with DC1. DC1 had the console server up and running. And what we did was we started the mesh gateway. So we created a policy as well as a mesh gateway token, assigned it to a mesh gateway, and started the mesh gateway for DC1. The second thing that we did was, besides starting these services, but you can do whatever you want with DC1. But then the second thing we did was enable ACL replication between multiple data centers. So this means that ACLs in primary will then get replicated to secondary. You can see this if you click tokens. If you click the tokens view, you'll notice a bunch of tokens. And you'll notice that it is associated with, actually, this answers your question, Cole, in that global, right? Mesh Gateway DC2. That one.
Mesh Gateway. Oh, this one?
Yeah. So what we could do is actually, if you go to DC2 and you create an ACL token, we can see if it comes up in.
Oh, look, they're all the same. Oh, so you just want to make one real quick?
Yeah, make one in DC2 because this was your original question.
Test for science.
Yes. Now there's a little restrict up there. Restrict this token to local data center. If you check that, I believe it will not get replicated.
Okay, cool. But if I just save this without anything, we should be good, right?
Yeah, it means it will. Replicate.
Okay. So a test for science is here. Oh, look at that. So it's as if when replication's on, I understand that they are being replicated between each other, but it's almost like they're being synced between each other, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so you can check
Nice.
off the restrict to this data center, which means that it would not show up in DC1, for example.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to try to do that or no?
Yeah, you could do that.
All right.
You have to delete this one, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
We will keep that there for the track record, just of saying, hey, that was there. Another test for science. Cool, if I can spell. Okay.
I love how this is science.
Way to go.
Might be further down at the bottom. I don't know.
Maybe it's only in DC1. Maybe everything gets created there.
Oh yeah.
So
there we
for
go.
science, so restrict to local data center means in your main one. Then.
Well, that's because I think you're using the federation dropdown. I wonder if you delete this.
Okay, so we'll get rid of this one. Let's just make another one, just so we can.
Okay. So if you go to your other tab with console services.
My other tab with console services.
There's DC2.
DC2. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. If you go in here and you click tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, log in with the Bootstrap token, I suppose. Because you need to log in.
Yeah, I could have sworn I did. Yeah, let me unshare my screen real quick to grab the token.
You might have to re-authenticate because once it federates, remember it's synchronizing the token, right? So it's synchronizing. It's a different Bootstrap token now, or what it thinks is a different Bootstrap token.
Very good point. Okay, there's that. I am in.
Okay, so share. Okay, so then what you can do is you could create a third test for science, and we'll see.
A third test for science.
Restrict token to local data center.
Filled with charm. Okay, and then restrict this, and then save. So it's from where the endpoint that I make it from is where it considers local. Okay. Okay, cool. Yep. Because if we go back here, it's not there. Nice. Right.
And you don't see another test for science here. So
that's
cool. So second big step, set up ACL replication. If you do set up ACL replication, you still can create ACLs restricted to local data centers. You just have to specify it.
Nice. Okay. Cool. We didn't get to touch on any of this last time. This is really neat. Okay.
Yeah. So then in terms of DC2, what we did was we started the server for DC2 with all of the Mesh Gateway Federation parameters enabled, right? And then we similarly generated a Mesh Gateway policy and token, added it to Mesh Gateway DC2, made sure that started first, and then we checked that they have federated. So 3 steps. Set up the primary data center, and the primary data center should have a Mesh Gateway set up. Then set up ACL replication. Then set up any secondaries with their Mesh Gateways enabled. Yep. Okay. Go ahead.
And don't forget to add those that's the top, but my lesson learned was that in our previous 2 episodes, there were just a couple of those smaller details that sort of stacked up that result in us not being able to pass specifically that scoping your tokens not to one data center when you create those service identities, and then also expose servers, the option expose servers when you set up the Mesh Gateway. So
yes. Okay, so finally now, Cole, you can do what you've been waiting for, and that's copy the ACL tokens for API DC2 node service tokens into all of those files. So I'm going to stop your share for a second.
Good.
So, and I'll explain what we're doing next. So basically, we successfully federated, but what we didn't do was solve our original problem, which, as you recall, was we want to connect web in DC1 to API in DC2. It's important to recognize that when you do something like cluster federation, the intent is that maybe you want this for failover purposes. Maybe you're setting up multiple data centers or multiple console clusters because they're organized by different teams, right? You don't want a multi-tenant kind of approach. You want them to be single tenant. Now, you can do a multi-tenant approach in console. In the enterprise version, there's admin partitions, there's namespaces. There's also now cluster peering. But if you're in the open source version, for the most part, federation is the way that you would sort of offer some initial tenancy kind of restrictions. So if you want to get more complicated and more granular with how you want to separate workloads, as well as divide up access to workloads, I recommend looking at Consul Enterprise's admin partitions, cluster peering, namespaces, and stuff like that. That is what would make more sense if that is the model that you prefer. Otherwise, again, this is the sort of more complicated approach with federation specifically. But there were a couple of reasons why, again, you would choose to do federation. If maybe you have different regions, so you could have a cluster in one region and a cluster in a second region, a cluster on-prem, a cluster in a public cloud somewhere, and in which case federation would make some sense because you want to divert them through a specific gateway.
I believe that I've done a mismatch here with some of the tokens somewhere. Oh, never. Oh, no. It says it's joined. Maybe it's just taking some time.
Did you run post apply DC2, right? You did run post apply DC2.
I think
copy
perhaps
from DC2.
This is what it was. Okay. Once again, I was just being impatient. Yes, that is all it was. That is all it was. How many DevOps fears arise from impatience?
Yeah.
Now it's working.
Too many.
Okay. Okay, so let me just check. So DC2, yep, API's up. Okay, we're good.
Okay, so I'm sharing your screen now.
All right.
Okay. So you see API is up. Now, if you go back to fake service, Cole, in the UI and just refresh it, just refresh it. Mm-hmm. So you'll notice it's still going to DC1, 255, right? Mm-hmm. Web is still going to API and DC1, IP address is 10.255. We want to divert it to DC2. We want web to communicate to API in DC2, which is in 254, right? Mm-hmm.
And just to confirm, here is its address. It is a D to 254. So that's what we want to see.
Yes, exactly. So what we need to do is we're going to create a configuration entry. Cool.
Okay.
Now remember, in our service mesh episode, which was, I'm trying to remember, part 7, and part 8, we talked about how we configure the service mesh to shape traffic, right? So we could tell it to route based on header, we could tell it to route based on path, we could tell it to divert it or route it or resolve it for a default. What we're going to do is, if you recall from those episodes, we're going to set a service resolver. A service resolver is going to set up traffic to resolve from one service to another and explicitly define which service instance we want to set up.
Nice. Okay. That's pretty cool. So once you get this all set up, we then just get to return to our usual workflow of writing these config files and working with them inside of these service splitters, routers, etc., just as if they were another service, right?
Exactly. So what we're going to do then is, if you go to the code base and you look at post apply resolver.sh under the scripts.
Yep. Let me make sure I don't have any tokens showing on my IDE before I pull this back up. Okay. All right. So which one again? The resolver?
Resolver, yeah. Nice. What we're going to do is we're going to set a service resolver. And you'll recall that a service resolver tells Consul which service to resolve to. I wonder what the name is for. Anyway, so the name is the target, right? So what we're saying is that anytime you have a service that needs to resolve to API, for example, in the case of web, redirect it to datacenter DC2.
Yeah, cool. Okay,
that's
nice.
it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Counting? Yeah, 5 lines of config.
So imagining you have an outage in DC1 API, you can literally swing things around this quickly. That's pretty neat.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Okay.
So you're going to apply the post. You can do bash scripts post apply resolver.sh.
Bash scripts. Go forth and conquer. Yes.
Okay. So this means there's a service resolver entry now. So let's go back to the console UI. It's probably easier to see it this way.
All right.
Okay. So if you go to DC1, if you go to overview.
Okay. Alrighty.
And you, sorry, not overview, services. I always forget now. It's the services. Click on web. So remember, we want web and DC1 to connect to API and DC2. It's currently saying web's just going to connect to API. Cool, fine. But let's go to routing. Well, you'll notice. Oh no, wait. Sorry.
I haven't
go to
refreshed
API.
this. Oh, okay.
No, it doesn't. I think I just chose the wrong one. You go to API.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Go to routing. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
I had a little bit of like a blooper of like, wait, which one is? So API is now resolving to DC2. So that's what that is denoting. So anytime web is communicating, it should communicate through to API in DC2.
So we're done.
I don't know. Let's refresh fake service and see if it works, because I don't know if it works or not.
All right, let us. Oh, look at that! What the heck is going on? Nice.
So effectively what we've done is with this config, we're forcing everything, we're forcing API to divert all the way to DC2. So if you have another service, it doesn't have to be web. If let's say you have, I don't know, some service A that needs to communicate to API, then it will just always go to DC2 with this config.
I'm gonna have a moment of just peace and how seamless this all went. Rosemary, thank you for having it all prepped up. This because the previous two times I've been so lost in the weeds of us trying to debug, try weird things, look through logs, that I kind of got lost in the forest and was unable to like see what we were doing. This made so much more sense, and the value of it is clicking a lot more than can often be covered up, when you're debugging for hours. So
yes,
nice.
Yes. Yeah, we had some struggles. Usually it's, I know some folks prefer to just skip over us like slogging through and trying to debug and figure things out. This is a happy path, right? If there's an unfortunate sad path, in terms of debugging, just check that your parameters are correct. Most important ones that we missed: ACL replication, turning that on, exposed servers on the mesh gateway, setting primary data centers across all console agents, not just servers, but also on clients across every single instance. And those were kind of the main ones. And I think the fourth one that we had to check was routing. You can check our Terraform configs for the security groups that we opened up in order for it to work. And you do have to allow certain security groups open for initial bootstrapping, just like we had the anonymous token. You can turn that off after it's federated, but when it's upon initial federation, it does need that connectivity.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I do remember that from our first trial, was getting stuck a little while in the VPC peering, the security groups between those. So just double check those.
Yeah, exactly. We did have to double check, and it did have to be open. It wasn't just like you can open the mesh gateways and be done. For initial bootstrapping of federation, you do have to have everything open.
Yeah.
So just as a warning for if you're trying to figure this out and it's just not working. And the other thing for us was that the ACL token needed for web, which was the downstream, needed to have access to connect to all data centers. The error message does not get surfaced, at least not clearly. So if you do have an issue where it says like it just can't connect, and then it says the service is not getting added because it's unhealthy. API, for example, is not getting added as a cluster to web, as an Envoy cluster to web, because it's not healthy. It's probably because the ACL is not scoped correctly.
And the more you know.
Yeah. So anyway, shall we? We're done. Do we need
are
a
we
recap?
really?
Yeah, we're done.
You did that was kind of a recap. At least I thought it was a good one.
Yeah. All right. We'll leave it there at that recap. With that, we are officially done with getting into console. We've redeemed ourselves, I think, in this part.
If you're watching the first time through, technically you've got 2 more parts to go. So
yes. Go back, check out parts 12 and 13. Again, this is we're recording this just so that there was some clarity. We wanted to wrap this up a bit, but definitely check out part 12 and part 13. Part 12 we did HTTP console. Part 13 was console Terraform sync. And that sort of wraps up and rounds out all of the getting into console series. There are plenty more features we didn't explore, plenty of other things that we didn't dive into too deeply, but hopefully this gives you a good sense of the broad applications of console as well as the various things that you can do with it. And you have some examples of how to approach it for your deployment if you decide to deploy it yourself.
Yeah. And like after you've done it, just take back and let it simmer, because this right here is such an incredible pattern and tool to have at your disposal to manage 2 data centers, which you're probably going to have to deal with at some point, assuming you're not going all in on one region or one private network. So it can kind of get lost when you're doing it. My whole point being is after you've done it, just take a moment to reflect, because you can come up with a lot of cool ideas after the fact.
Yeah, you could federate different workloads. You could federate different geographic data centers. You could federate not different geographic data centers. Again, any kind of tenancy model that you want to put together, you can generally do with federation. But if you have Consul Enterprise, you can do it with more granular kind of tenancy approaches too. So there's a lot of options for you to choose. And in this situation, if it means that you decide you want to do a Kubernetes cluster and an ECS and server list for some reason and virtual machines, you can each have them in their own data centers and figure out how they want to route between them if you want. You don't have to do that. You could add them all into one Consul cluster if you really wanted to as well. There's limitless ways in which you might want to segment this out. Yes. At last, rather than the other memes. I think the other memes, I should have saved the clips from the other memes that you ended up putting on screen after the fact. It was what was it? It was the desk flipping. Now we've got success.
Yeah.
Here we are. All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to close out Getting into Consul then.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And if you want to check out the rest of Getting into Consul, we'll put the playlist in the description. Do check it out. If you have any questions, always reach out to us, and we'll see you on the next Getting Into series, which I think we will be setting up soon. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.